Okay. We good to go?
Yeah, I'm seeing that numbers.
As people come in, I think they'll figure it out pretty quickly. Okay. Hello,
Nice.
everybody joining us out from all over the place. I'm so glad to see such a wonderful variety of locations here for our event. I'm Johanna Smith. I'm the current chair of the Puppetry in Education and Therapy Committee, and it's my job here to just simply introduce these wonderful presenters. But I did think would be kind of cool to talk about how we decided to do this topic. We meet as a committee leadership team for the committee, and all of us just happen to be mentioning in passing that we had all a huge debt to one person, and that person is Nancy Renfro. In particular, a lot of us mentioned this book. I don't know if you can see this, Puppetry in Early Childhood Education, which absolutely was a huge influence on me in my work and led directly to me writing this book. Nancy Renfro is quoted all over the place in it, and a big point of my writing it was to try to reintroduce the term puppetizing to the world because it is such a great word and such an important concept in puppetry education. So, so I unfortunately never got to meet this amazing woman, but like I said, I've been doing things like finding her puppets at puppet festivals and trying to grab any book I could to learn what I could about her remarkable life. And that led us to where we are right here. So before I get too far ahead, Ellen Scott, who is here as one of our panelists, dear friend of Nancy's and inheritor of her company, has provided for us many copies of this book, Artistic Triumph Amid Darkness, Nancy Renfro's Remarkable Creative Odyssey. This book is absolutely gorgeous. It is a fantastic read, but I think the best part is you get to see some of Nancy's artwork as a painter and her puppets, of course, but she was a very skilled oil painter, and her paintings are just remarkable and inspiring. And as part of today's event, we are going to raffle off a copy of this book. So Connie just posted the link right there. Please enter our book drawing. It's free. I will send whoever wins it a book. We really just want to get this book out there. However, if you're signing up for the raffle, it would be kind of cool if you can think of, at this point, we are unable to sell them quite yet if we were going to try to raise money. But what we definitely want to do as the PIET committee is make sure copies of the book end up in libraries where puppetry educators can access them. So, for example, my university is going to get a copy, right? So if you have a lead on a place, a library, either at a university that has a puppetry program or a library that does tons of puppet events that has a lot of people coming to enjoy puppetry, that would be a great place to recommend that we send a book. So if you guys can think of anything, please use the form that Connie is sharing. And if not, you can always reach me. I'm going to put my official Puppeteers of America address. We're at PIET@puppeteers.org. And we also have other links we'll share at the end on how you can be more of a part of our community. So without further ado, I'm going to have the panelists do a better introduction of themselves than me. So I am going to start by highlighting Samantha, who is going to be our first presenter. Here we go, Samantha.
Oh, hi, everybody. So I'm just a member of the PIET committee, and I run a company called Suspended Belief Theater. And I'm just going to share my screen right now and get right into this and get you a lot of information on Nancy. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So we are here, as Johanna said, to celebrate the life and work of Nancy Renfro, who, amongst many other things, was an internationally recognized puppeteer, author, illustrator, puppetry entrepreneur, community educator, and lecturer. To say that she's beloved would be an understatement, as she's still truly treasured by many people worldwide. Educators and librarians everywhere use her products, like her books and kits with recordings and her puppets, for inspiring, teaching, and entertaining children. There are basically 3 sections of her professional work life. Always an artist, she was an industrial designer from 1959 through the late 1960s, a world-renowned puppeteer, author, illustrator, puppetry entrepreneur, and community educator and lecturer from the late 1960s to the early 1990s, and then a fine artist painting and sculpting in her late 40s during the last decade of her life, from 1983 to 1993. She had some quite profound lifelong challenges, and we can see throughout her lifetime how these challenges affected her on her path. This is Nancy Winberg, age 5, that's her maiden name. And Nancy was born with Usher syndrome, which is a rare genetic disease that affects both hearing and vision and can also cause problems with balance. And so she was born with this nerve deafness, resulting in nearly 15% hearing loss. She didn't speak until age 4, and then with a bilateral lisp. So it was more difficult for her growing up in the 1940s because there was no classification at the time for a special needs child. So she struggled with those early hearing aids and didn't really wear them regularly until high school, when she sought to be more social. She logged many hours working with a speech therapist, whom upon reflection she wishes had used a puppet. And her parents also spent lots of time reinforcing her speech with her. This photo is her high school graduation photo, and I read that after having trouble in earlier schooling, like facing terrible sense of insecurity and unacceptance, that Nancy's life completely changed in her high school years. Her school specialized in vocational courses, and Nancy took everything non-academic she could, describing herself as a kid loose in a candy shop. So she was studying sewing and cooking and art and tailoring, and was able to receive tons more one-on-one time with each teacher versus in grammar school. So from there, she went on to study at Pratt Institute. And for those of you who are not as familiar with the Eastern United States, Long Island and New York City are really nearby one another. And so Nancy stayed at her childhood home while in college at Pratt and just commuted on public transit each way. She graduated in 1959 with a Bachelor of Industrial Design. And now, while she hasn't discovered puppetry yet in her life, this Valentine heart of hers seemed really fitting for here, because she met the man she would marry just after graduation, Robert, or Bob Renfro, as he's more commonly known, whose support was foundational to everything Nancy created in their subsequent years together. So after some travel in Europe, they moved to Detroit, where they both worked at General Motors and made lots of small models of many things, including working on the House of the Future for the 1964 World's Fair. So Nancy specifically designed the kitchen of the future, and she up and quit when they cut this from the budget. So she continued working in town, designing some whimsical interiors and eye-catching promotional graphics for department stores and even a new local Mexican restaurant, which she brought bold, bright colors to the interior and then even designed their placemats and signage and menus. There came more challenges, though, for Nancy to face as she entered adulthood, as she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in her early 20s, along with manic depression. So the mood swings that associated with these things made life really difficult, led to several attempts on her life, which she ultimately did, and involved some institutionalism at a few junctures. So central to overcoming all of the obstacles life put in her path was her enduring strength, courage, hard work, and visionary artistry. Addressing these challenges definitely helps us to further understand her work. So after Detroit, Nancy and Bob moved to New Haven, Connecticut, where Nancy designed modifications to what's now JFK's airport interior with the company she was with at the time. And then she made her first puppet at age 26 after she saw a sign in the library window and volunteered teaching puppetry. And she taught at many other venues, opened a puppetry school in her studio apartment at the time, and then continued with architecture as well, with a hand in many building designs in White Plains, New York, and then ends up writing her first book in 1969 called Puppets for Play Production. So after New Haven, the Renfros moved to Berwyn, Pennsylvania, where Nancy meets a librarian named Anne Schwab, and who was head of the children's department, and teaches her how to integrate puppetry. So Nancy and Anne collaborated for Nancy's second book in 1978, which is called The Puppet Corner in Every Library. Nancy designed and made puppets at home for the library, and then Anne circulated them and set up a stage in the library. So that was wonderful for children to have access to. Nancy developed the show 8 Years of Ben Franklin, which toured widely and to St. Croix with her husband after training him up on performing with the puppets. And this toured from one end of the island to the other with 2 school shows a day, as well as in outdoor amphitheaters. After Berwyn, Nancy and Bob moved to Austin, Texas, and that's really where everything starts to pick up. So this is near where Bob was raised, and Nancy Renfro Studios is founded in 1978, which becomes the leading publisher and manufacturer of puppetry media for school and library use. In its full steam days, Nancy had a dozen employees, including 9 people sewing and her mom doing the bookkeeping. So she introduces this idea of host puppets to act as ambassadors to a classroom or library, and designs many adaptations of puppets, including a Velcro bracelet for children with physical disabilities to hold, and a body puppet, which is a child-sized flat body with flexible arms and legs that end in elastic loops that could accommodate the wearer's hands and feet. and which a deaf child, while wearing, can like sign and make the puppet personally communicate with the flexible arms. So she also published the rest of her books from Austin and then continued to deliver workshops and tour internationally. The following definitions are from the book Johanna showed, actually, Puppetry and Early Childhood Education, that she co-wrote with Tamara Hunt. This is puppet play, which is playing with puppets, which is, of course, the simplest form of puppetry, where like dramatic play, it occurs spontaneously and without adult intervention. So a child may talk freely to a puppet, two children might interact with each other's puppets, or several children may experiment with puppets in front of a mirror or behind a makeshift stage. Puppetizing is closely supervised by one or more adults who apply creative dramatic techniques to direct children in the use of puppets for acting out stories, poems, songs, and the like. And with puppetization, there's neither an audience nor a stage, so the children are just informally performing for one another. Puppetelling involves the use of puppets by the teacher to make music and literature visually exciting, to enrich story hours, and to stimulate an appreciation of literature. For instance, a monkey puppet can mischievously turn the pages of H.A. Ray's Curious George, or a Santa puppet can direct Christmas Carol sing-alongs with children, that type of thing. Puppet talking employs puppets on a one-to-one basis to encourage conversations related to social and emotional growth, or SEL. A classroom mascot puppet might welcome new children on the first day of school, while a nurse puppet could entice a child to talk about a forthcoming surgery, for instance. Puppet teaching uses puppets to facilitate the acquisition of knowledge and skills. So a rainbow puppet could aid in color identification, or a little inchworm finger puppet could reinforce concepts of measurement. Here also is one of the speech pillows she designed, which was an aid to speech pathology and audiology sessions, as it could model tongue, teeth, and lip movements. You can see the oversized teeth under the lips here, which were fully removable. I wanted to highlight this book also, called Pocketful of Puppets, Activities for the Special Child with Mental, Physical, and Multiple Handicaps. In this collaboration with Debbie Sullivan, they describe 6 groups of children with whom puppetry is effective: the hearing impaired, visually impaired, physically disabled, learning disabled, intellectually disabled, and emotionally disturbed. And you can see one of the adapted puppetry designs here that I had mentioned earlier. Nancy designed and gave hundreds of workshops to teachers and librarians on the topics of puppetry, storytelling, imagination, and creativity. She traveled extensively, sharing her dynamic workshops throughout the United States, including Alaska, Hawaii, the Virgin Islands, as well as on American Indian reservations. She also spent 2 summers in Japan, and in 1988 spent 3 weeks on a puppetry tour there that was sponsored by the National Japan Puppetry Foundation. Groups that would gather to see her presentations could sometimes top 800 people, and Nancy worked to expand each participant's own creativity with her passion and message. Participants would clamor around her, and she made education and literacy a highly enjoyable learning experience for everyone. By incorporating play and involvement, she was able to generate a new way of thinking that made an impact on future educational programming. And really, when she realized the puppets' popularity and their powerful potential as a teaching tool, she just simply couldn't stop. So Nancy Renfro, of course, also had involvement with Puppeteers of America, presenting in 1974 and 76 and 77 at our national festival, which is a gathering that mostly happens every 2 years, continues to this day. Her service to the organization included being the educational consultant to Puppeteers of America, and she was also the regional editor for educational news in the 1970s for the Puppeteers of America newsletter with Bruce Chachet, who's another fantastic puppet artist here near me in Portland, where he's the artistic director for the Oregon Puppet Theater now, I believe. So Nancy and her often co-author of her books, Tamara Hunt, wrote an article for the Puppeteers of America magazine, the Puppetry Journal, which is also ongoing today, on puppetry and early childhood, which was published in the November and December 1981 issue. In addition to those sprinkled throughout this presentation, I made a small selection of puppets here that really stood out to me. Here we see this like glorious 2-sided folk puppet that was made by Nancy Renfro Studios that showed John Henry as a muscly little baby, and on the other side, fully grown into that steel driving man. And then here's another in that same style. You can see Pecos Bill here with his floppy hat as an accessory after he grows up. This line of puppets also had mouths that open and close on both sides when being operated, so that's pretty spectacular. And you can see in this photo how Pecos Bill's 4 feet came together around the opening for the hand. Then here's this little fun-loving robot that someone had for sale online recently that came up in my initial searches, and the tag there that was sewn into each puppet sent out by Nancy Renfro Studios. This is a little slide for Nancy's legacy. So during a 21-year span, 1969 to 1990, she authored and co-authored and illustrated 20 books on puppetry. Her staff estimated that she may have sold as many as 200,000 books. Nancy Renfro Studios, her cottage industry offering all those wonderful things, had the goal of facilitating education and creativity through the magic of puppetry. She designed and marketed an extensive line of over 300 whimsical puppets, ranging in size from small finger puppets to full-size body puppets. All were made to be washable. Amazing. Were mostly available in brown, tan, or pink skin, and there were a range of ages represented among the people as well. Her categories included all sorts of wildlife, historical figures, holiday puppets, farm animals, sea life, witches, monsters, teddy bears, and of course, characters from storybooks and poems. And then later, created over 300 large-scale paintings in 10 years' time. So in Nancy's later years, we see her Usher syndrome taking its toll as she experiences diminished balance and a progressively narrow field of vision, tunneling vision, with addition of what she describes as wavy lines that interrupt her vision and then eventually essential blindness. These puppets in this picture at the top here are from The Old Woman Who Swallowed a Fly, which is one of her very popular creations. And this is some awards and recognition that she received. So she was in 1978 receiving a special award from Puppeteers of America in recognition of her outstanding contributions as a teacher of teachers of creative puppetry and as a special performer for children. In 1983, or by 1983, Nancy's passion for puppetry took a backseat to her next and final all-encompassing career as a painter. She had no formal training in painting, but she worked relentlessly to master this medium so as to gain another avenue of expression. In 1984, she was recognized as a notable woman of the year in Texas and awarded the Barbara Jordan Media Award for her work on behalf of people with disabilities. So in 1987 and 88, she was awarded multiple national and regional awards in Texas for her oil paintings, and those are listed at the right. The characterization techniques that she acquired from puppetry reverberate in her vividly peopled paintings. So here's a small selection of these, and they're just so huge and amazing. I found these first two online in my initial search. The dance was auctioned not too long ago. And then I read that Swan Lady, seen on the right here, had been presented in numerous exhibitions at the national level and was featured on the cover of a magazine in 1993 and published as a poster in that same year. And I followed up a little bit, and it ended up being gifted to the headquarters of an assisted living franchise in California that specializes in care for adults with chronic and debilitating conditions. So they expressed that they really love how this painting depicts a sassy, outgoing elderly woman who does not have a problem showing what living well and being well means. And so they felt that she encourages elderly women to be colorful and to be themselves. Here's a few more really fun ones. Please note the high heel alligator shoes over here. With these paintings, it seemed to me like she wasn't unlike a composer, you know, filling the pages with music already in their mind. She just created essentially the equivalent of 30 pieces a year for 10 years. So at this point, you know, her vision is increasingly worsening and she's painting as fast as she can. So she's ending up physically working closer and closer to her large canvases during this time. These apple eaters, which I just adore this one so much, was inspired by a couple that she spotted in the airport. And then there's a great showing again here next to that of a pair of alligator shoes taken. All these paintings are in oil, but I did come across a few in acrylic, and she also made a smaller set of sculptures, which she then painted and set the objective to paint in her studio for 10 hours a day. So that is there. Johanna has a link that she's going to share in the chat with some resources. And this specific one here, this collection at the University of Texas, has been described as a seemingly bottomless well filled with Nancy's sketchbooks, puppets, notes, photographs, slides, including one of her paintings, which is a full 7 by 5 foot original housed there, and letters and other memorabilia. Of course, you can also head to eBay if you'd like to find a few used puppets still trading hands. And in honor of Earth Day here, I just added this as well because Nancy was one of the first actually to advocate for recycling. And although upcycling wasn't a word yet, in puppet building, you can see this fun robot and rocket ship made of plastic odds and ends next to this nice list that Ellen Scott shared with me. And Nancy shared this following poem, What Puppets Are Made Of, in Puppets for Play production. So she says, sticks and stones and chicken bones, bottle caps, paper bags, and bits of rags, cardboard boxes and discarded sockses, dried up weeds and sunflower seeds, those everyday things we take for granted or happily throw away can be the ingredients from which kings are made. Save everything, she said.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Samantha. That was like everything with Nancy Renfro, so inspiring. First of all, let's all just, what an amazing human being. Like what an artist. What
Yeah,
a career. Yeah, I just have to just go do this with my hands. That's the only thing I can really do at this point. Thank you for that overview. This is wonderful. And this
you're welcome.
to our next presenter, because when we were talking about what we want to really discuss, one was definitely Nancy Renfro's career, and like she's just an incredible person, but also Claire is a practitioner who uses her ideas constantly. And so I will send it over to Claire, who had a host of family members helping her today. And so in honor of that amazing work that your family did here, I'm going to put you in the spotlight right now. There we go.
You see these mittens? I make for these mittens for my great-granddaughter to keep her hands warm because I love her. But one day she go out when it's very, very cold. I am her babushka. She goes out and it is very, very cold. And so she lose one of her mittens. The cold where I live, the snow, it does fall and it falls and it falls. And so it was very, very cold. And the animals, they were very cold too. And there was little mouse, squeakity, 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 squeak. And the little mouse saw the mitten and said, ooh, that looks warm, and crawled right into the mitten, just like that. And of course, there were many, many animals in the forest. And so along came a little turtle. And the turtle said, I am so cold, and went right into the mitten. This began one of my journeys with Nancy Renfro. So Nancy Renfro, in her books, had so many ideas, and she was the first person that I ever saw in a book who had lots of recycled materials, lots of materials to make them accessible for teachers, for everyone to make puppets. I was attending festivals and the work was really complicated and everybody was talking about complicated materials, but I worked in schools and people had to be able to afford the materials. Nancy Renfro offered all of that. She talked about making stories from aprons. So this mitten story I've told many, many times, and I have finger puppets that go with it. And it was all inspired by her work. And all of the animals fit into this mitten until this mitten, of course, explodes, if you know the story of the mittens. This is a story that originates in the Ukraine, which is tiny now. But I'm going to show you another one of the apron stories that I'm developing for a school that I'll be in a couple of weeks. So this looks more traditionally like what Nancy's did, with lots and lots of pockets. This one is going to be about a wombat, because we're going to be talking about marsupials. This will be with kindergarten. And so Nancy would make aprons. They would be covered in pockets in all different ways. This particular one is inspired by Michael Morpurga's book, Wombat Goes Walkabout. I use lots and lots of children's literature. And Nancy was one of the first people that I could find a book about that actually connected to stories and rhymes and children's books. And so I just ate up the materials, and her materials were so rich in all of her books. I've used every single one of them. So while you've seen puppets that she made, I did not purchase the puppets that she made. I used the patterns in her books and the ideas in her books to make my own puppets. And that's where I found the value. Every page was just chock full of ideas and filled with every kind of idea imaginable. So this particular story is going to be about a little wombat who goes walkabout. And he is always saying, I think a lot and I dig a lot. And he meets lots of other animals along the way. So he meets, of course, the kangaroo. And the kangaroo, he says, ooh, who are you? Oh, I am the kangaroo. And what can you do? Oh, I can't do very much. I can walk, I can talk, I dig a lot, and I think a lot. Oh, well, that's nothing. I can hoppity hop, 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 hop. Each animal in this story has their own talent. And the poor little wombat thinks he doesn't have anything until one day fire breaks out in the outback. And the fact that he can dig, because he goes and he digs and he digs and he digs a very large hole, just like the mitten, all of the animals end up in the pocket with him, protected from the fire. And so the fact that he can dig a lot and think a lot, and he thinks the animals should be invited in, of course, makes him the hero of the story. But I think these apron stories are wonderful. You can be seated with the children. Very often I'm in a circle and I'm seated with the children, or I can stand and I can have all of the different pockets that are in here. The very first puppet that I ever made from a Nancy Renfro book was this one. This is her old lady who swallowed the fly. Now you saw the ones from her company that she made, but she made it so that all of us, anyone, could make an old lady puppet. So hers was made out of grocery bags, 2 of them. One fits in the other, so that the slot is here for the mouth. This is much easier to do when there are children present. And so we know that story about the old lady who swallowed a fly. Now, everybody used to question with young children, because of course, first, she swallows the fly. We don't know why she swallowed that fly. Perhaps she'll die. And there were people that sort of objected to this particular story. But now the teachers are using stories by Lucille Calandro. There are dozens of these little old lady books. One is about the old lady who swallowed a rose. Why do you suppose she swallowed the rose? She swallowed some books. She swallowed a frog, a rose. So there are all of these books, and they're coming back. And so I've been doing this again with teachers for those. So of course, we know that after she swallowed the fly, she swallowed the spider that wiggled and jiggled and tickled inside her. And all of these, of course, can go in here. And then she swallowed the bird to eat the spider that wiggled and jiggled and tickled inside her, who swallowed the fly. I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. The children, of course, get to come, and they get to all of the items in her while she swallows. I'm getting very, very full. So after we do things like the old lady, you heard it mentioned that Nancy Renfro talked about having host puppets for each one of the stories or the presentations that she did. I don't, sometimes you don't know who inspired you or how, but I do know that early on that I took that to heart, this idea of having a puppet that always introduces a story. I have a signature puppet. I have a bear, and he always comes. All the children know him. But I have many other, what she would consider to be host puppets that are about a particular story. So one of the host puppets is just this little cloud. Hello, I am Little Cloud. And Little Cloud sees shapes. And this is for Eric Carl's cloud. And there are shapes. All of the children get shapes that they get to unroll. It's a surprise that look like clouds, and they get to name what it is that they see, because clouds can be anything, and they can go through the sky. So this host puppet introduces that particular story. Nancy Renfro is also the very first person that I saw take stuffed animals. Now there are people that offer workshops in this, but in her books, there were ideas about taking stuffed animals off the shelves and cutting them apart and turning them into puppets. My children call this Frankensteining, and they'll always look at me and go, "Oh, I can see you're Frankensteining another puppet." The Frankensteining works really well when I need to come up with a puppet very quickly and I don't have time to do a build from beginning to end with the foam and the mouths and the whole thing. So this is a puppet that has been Frankensteined from a stuffed bear. Oh, hello, everybody. Oh, I'm so glad to see you today. You know that Nancy Renfro? She was a genius. She knew all about making puppets. Oh, I'm glad I got to be a puppet. And so my little bear here was picked out from a stuffed animal in the store and then cut up from behind, cut across the mouth, and I could turn it into a puppet, and it didn't have to take forever. And it could be a host puppet. It has marched with me in parades. Yeah, I've gone lots of places. And so thank you, Nancy Renfro, for the idea of cutting puppets apart. So I've even taken the heads off of one stuffed animal and put them on another stuffed animal, and Frankenstein those particular puppets as well. So Nancy talks about puppet telling. I think out of all the words that she coined, I think that one is my favorite, is that we are telling stories with our puppets in lots and lots of different ways. And so one of her ideas, I had forgotten I even had this. I ran down into my shop, and she showed having a clothesline, and then your puppets are on the clothesline. So this is the story of the three bears, and you'll see there's a clothespin on the back. And I like doing this because you can put the story in sequence, and so young children can see the sequence of a story while it's happening. Now, one of the things that happens for me in terms of the puppets and how they get designed is Goldilocks is a very traditional story, but this was inspired by my granddaughter, who would wear headbands. She had daytime headbands and bedtime headbands, and I asked her why there were particular ones she liked, and she said they were her favorite. So now when I tell the story of Goldilocks, it's not because she has gold hair. It's because she has gold ribbons that run through her hair, because that's her favorite of all of her ribbons. And she wears ribbons in her hair every day. And so I can redesign Goldilocks any way I want. But all of these, as you're telling the story, all of these just clip right onto the line, so that when, Papa Bear comes, you can get them right there. And then you can begin to tell the sequence of the story. And I would hang these. And with older children, as the sequence was going, they would do things like say, in the deep woods, the 3 bears. Or, and the kids could help me read these, Papa Bear's chair was too hard. And all of that came, I didn't really realize that the inspiration had come from Nancy Renfro, but when I started reviewing for all of this, there it was, that idea right there was in one of her books. So I had retained that somewhere in the back of my mind to use another time. And so I think that her work is just absolutely incredible, and it's very usable for everyone, for every teacher, for someone. I meet people who aren't confident about their art, and so I think anyone can embrace the work. This little puppet right here is not as fancy as her particular wrist puppets, but you can see it's got a band on the back. This one I've made Velcro, but I actually, I'm so small I can actually put this on my wrist. So make it so that the child can look at the face. And I'm going to tell you a story about this puppet. So many years ago, I was in a workshop, and it was on a respite center, and parents would take their children who had varying difficulties and disabilities, and they would take them there, and then they would have a day off. Well, there was a little boy, and I thought he was about 2 years old, and he was in an infant seat, but he was 13 years old. And so when I found that out, no one was approaching him, no one was talking to him, and he didn't have the ability to speak, but I went over to him and I just started pulling materials out of my box. And because of Nancy Renfro, I remembered this kind of puppet that could fit on a wrist. And so I put the puppet, I made one with him, and I talked to him while we were doing it. And I talked about the eyes and the nose and where everything was. And then I put it on him. And while I don't know whether it had any effect for the child, when the mother came that day to pick her son up, she began to cry. And she said, no one ever does anything with him. So when we are not sure whether our work is important or has impact, Nancy Renfro knew this. She knew the impact that the work has. It always has impact. So the wrist puppets are simple and wonderful. And for anybody who has limited mobility, it's a great puppet. One of the other puppets that you saw talked about was this one, where it's a full body puppet. And so this one you can wear. And you tie it on. Now this one I just made out of paper. You can use paper, you can use fabric, you can use anything. And so if a child is in a chair, then this puppet works. This puppet works really well as well if you need to be able to sign. Let's put the loops through here. Here we go. So you've got your own hands and the hands of the puppets. Now I can't step away far enough, but I can also put the feet around my ankles and the puppet can walk. And when it's on stage or when it's in front of others, you can really see this puppet. So a number of years ago, I was asked to do a program with the Atlanta Area School for the Deaf and a school in Gainesville, Georgia, where the children were hearing children. And they were to work together, but they were very far apart, both geographically and in their abilities. So we talked about how to communicate. The children, all of them, made these puppets so that we could perform a segment of the Firebird. So we had the stories of the Firebird, all the inspiration from all of the books that we could find. The Atlanta Area School for the Deaf had a spectacular stage with all the bells and whistles. The other school had just a platform. We performed this in both schools with the kids going to each school, and these children were paired together. But the use of their hands, of course, was very, very important. and they were very showy. We used lots of fabric and lots of fancy stuff. But these particular puppets, like this, have informed many of the different kinds of puppets that I've made over the years. I've turned puppets like this into rod puppets, into marionettes, and they've had many, many different kinds of uses. So I think this is just a brilliant puppet. I think the thing that impressed me, even in Samantha's introduction, was how much Nancy accomplished in her life and how much she got done every day. And the same is true in all of her books. This one in particular, I have used, along with the early childhood book, Puppetry, Language, and the Special Child. It was ahead of its time. There wasn't a lot of work. People weren't doing a lot of work. This book came out, and it as well is just filled with ideas and patterns and ways to do things. There isn't anything in here that someone can't work with. So I am very grateful to Nancy Renfro. I started out in the 1970s making puppets because there was no one doing that, and I wanted my own children to have those experiences. I'd go to the library, I'd find every book that I could. I didn't even know there was a thing called Puppeteers of America at the time. I started teaching myself. And then I discovered the Nancy Renfro books. And actually that changed everything, because I build with children. I want them to be able to build. And so that's what they do. Children build with me while they are getting ready for their storytelling. So I'm always doing building. I don't know that I would have known that was possible if I hadn't had these books available to me where Nancy did this kind of work. And so I knew that it was possible. So I would just like to say thank you to everyone. It was wonderful to be able to show you these puppets. I hope you will rediscover her work and rediscover her books if you haven't already. They are just chock full of ideas. They were not just about the time period that she did them in, they are applicable to today. And a lot of what we see some of our younger puppeteers doing as they're simplifying some of their work is very much the kind of work that we see in the Nancy Renfro books. So thank you all very much. It was been wonderful to share with you, and I hope you're inspired and go away and use some of Nancy's work. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Oh my gosh, as usual, I see any of this stuff, I get so excited, especially the story aprons. Like, thank you for sharing your story apron in progress, because one of the funniest things about story aprons, and I'm sure you guys can relate, like often when I'm doing stuff with kids, and I absolutely have kids build, that is such a cornerstone of building skills with young people, and we all know that. And Nancy just knew that. She just knew that that was a huge part of child development and what kids need to learn. And kids would always come up and like, where can I buy one of those puppets? And I'd say, I made it. And their faces just like, I'm Claire, you're because it's what happens, right? They're like, I can make a puppet.
Right, that's right.
I can do this.
Absolutely.
And that's part of what just Nancy, it's just baked into everything Nancy wrote and did, was this idea that of course you can, you know, like of course everyone can. Of course, if you have disabilities, of course you can do this too. Like it's, I think I've been really coming to appreciate how baked in that idea is that kids, especially that we can accommodate. It's just absolutely wonderful. Oh, you got a horse there. Wait, what is this?
So these are from the old lady that swallowed the fly. And since Johanna, you're talking about how simple the puppets can be, I don't draw, but I cut really well. So I always am just cutting out puppets, but they don't have to be complicated. These all needed to be flat so they would slide down the old lady's throat, right? So that and they all fit. Now in the other books, you can also, you know, you can put letters down in the old lady. you know, you can do apples and fruit, and you can do a whole vegetables thing. So she can swallow lots of different things. It doesn't have to just be the original song. And again, there are many, many books now that are the old lady books that are quite wonderful. But the next time I make an old lady, she's going to be hip and cool, just like me.
Yay! Let's reclaim the old ladies. I am now thrilled beyond belief to be able to introduce our next speaker. I'm of course thrilled to introduce Samantha and Claire, but this is one of those weird kismet sort of things that happen and as part of being part of the PIET committee. Almost out of nowhere, Ellen Scott emailed me about Nancy Renfro right when we were just talking about her and talking about her work and influence. So I'm so thrilled Ellen is with us. And not only that, Ellen has given me things to share with you, which I will share after her presentation. But I'm just going to turn it over to Ellen and to tell us more about Nancy, the person who you knew so well and worked with for years. So I'm going to spotlight you right now.
Thank you to all of you. This has been a real privilege to get to meet you. Actually, I'm a Puppeteers of America member, and I came across a newsletter, and it said, you know, you were going to do something about Nancy Renfro, and I went, wait, wait, I've been waiting for this opportunity. So my name is, I'm from Austin, Texas, and my name is Ellen Turner Scott. I began my puppetry journey in the in the 70s, early 80s. If it wasn't for Nancy Renfro, my mentor, I would not have experienced the precious gift of an amazing 50-year career in puppetry. I was a page in the children's room at the Austin Public Library, and my other mentor, Grace Schmidt, was a librarian who used puppets in story time. Nancy lived a block away from the library that I worked at, and she and I became fast friends. Coming from a visual artist background myself, the art of puppetry was just instantly appealing to me because it combined every single art form there is. Claire talked about host puppets. I used to do story times at the library along with my puppets. And this is George. This is a Nancy Renfro. Hi, my name is George, and I'm a dragon. But don't worry, I don't breathe fire. I breathe hot kisses. And at the end of the story time, I would always have the kids put their hands up, and George would blow kisses, hot kisses, to them. You know, her ideas were just brilliant. Also, I have a rare, one of a kind, just three-dimensional puppet that Nancy made. I think it was for her. She did some workshops in Japan, but this is like, you know, all of her puppets mainly are cloth puppets. But this little guy, I don't know, I was really lucky to end up with him or her. Nancy hired me to assist her in illustrating her book, this book, Puppet Shows Made Easy. I did not all the illustrations, but a lot of them. And she always got my name turned around. This is Ellen Scott Turner, which never bothered me. And then I worked on some of her shadow puppet kits. I don't know, those were towards the end of her life, and they were brilliant to use on overhead projectors. And she did European folk tales, Mother Goose, and I've got all that stuff, and I'm happy to share it. She contracted me to fabricate, sometimes like the fire department wanted a Dalmatian puppet. And so I would work on some of these custom design puppets. Also, I assisted her in making workshop puppets. Nancy was one of the first, as Claire said, one of the first puppeteers I know who made puppets out of recycled materials. So I think I have enough time to show some of these. This is an actual one that And it's a body puppet, like Claire was talking about. You put your hands through the rubber bands, and and this is actually from, I think Nancy made this, and I was looking at a date, and it was made in June on the newspaper. I found a date on the newspaper, June 15th, 1991. But you know, that was newspaper, paper plate, paper bag. This is a aluminum foil thing, and I was going to put the rubber band on, but I'll just show you. It talks like that. She loved to show surprises. This little guy. Woo! This is a salt carton with you know. This guy is awesome. There's 2 paper plates, some fabric, but that could be paper. She did this thing with rubber bands. You stapled one end and then the other. You put your hand through. Paper plates again. Beautiful. And then envelope. She had these envelope puppets, a lot of them. And then you so she was brilliant. And so she turned me on to puppets, and I turned her on to oil painting. I traded a home birth baby cockatiel. We were raising cockatiels for her first oil painting. I may show that at the end because I have to move the camera. But here are a couple other original pieces that I am privileged to own. Towards the end of her life, she made smaller stuff. This is watercolor on paper, and it's a wrestling match. This is one of my treasures. This is actually wood.
Oh, wow.
3-dimensional. I mean, you know, it's thin wood. My husband made her canvas, her stretcher bars for her canvas. He's a woodworker. Okay, so fast forward 50 years, and I find myself turning 70. And responsible for passing Nancy's legacy, knowledge, and inspiration to future generations. I am the proud owner of Nancy Renfro Studios, Inc., and possess at least 250 puppets, including the patterns. And this is how she did them in her studio. She had these bags that had the little hooks on them, and you know, they'd be in alphabetical order. This is a bat, and she'd have her seamstress, well, I want you to make 10 bats. And then she would, there's all the pattern pieces with instructions. Here's the mouth, cut 2, you know, the tongue, the teeth, and then the prototype. So I've got like over 250 of these. Isn't that fabulous? And you know, you go to look for puppets commercially online. I mean, Folk Manus are beautiful puppets, but you really don't find anything whimsical like this. A lot of her puppets have feather boa hair or yarn. So, and then she had over 15 books on puppetry. And that one that Claire was showing, this one's considered like the Bible of puppetry in early childhood education. And kits, papers, and most importantly, this I'm the holder of the history and the timeline of her remarkable life. So that's why I came forward. Then I'm reaching out to pick your brains as to what my next step should be. I am willing to consider all ideas. I collaborated with Bob Renfro and 4 other friends when he wrote How long have I been muted?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I must have hit it. This book, I reprinted it, and I helped collaborate a little bit on it. It's called Artistic Triumph Amid Darkness, Nancy Renfro's Remarkable Creative Odyssey, 1937 to 1993. And Bob, in doing this, he got organized and donated a massive amount of papers, journals, artwork, puppets, etc. to the Harry Ransom Center here in Austin. And I think Johanna is going to share a link to that.
Yep, just did it.
Okay, perfect. Nancy died in 1993, and I kind of inherited the company. I have been blessed with a rich puppet career, working for the Austin Public Library, building and performing puppet shows since the mid-70s. Our troupe is called Literature Live, and they're sharing a URL there. Juggling both jobs was not sustainable, so I made the choice to create and perform rather than run a manufacturing company, which probably would have ended up in China, which the integrity of a cottage industry, I just would like to maintain that if we could. Also, I love to oil paint. So I plan to retire from the library when I can't hold the puppets up anymore, probably in the next several years. But before I do, I would like to pass the wealth of Nancy's knowledge. So that's why I'm here today. And let me show you her painting. Can you see it?
That is
It's called
amazing.
It's called the Piano Man.
That is so amazing.
So yeah, I just, and like you guys were saying, the body of work she did, and 300 paintings in 10 years. Unbelievable. So that's what I got.
That's a lot. Thank you. Yay.
You're welcome.
It's so what a treat to be able to see all those puppets too.
Oh, I know.
And as Claire said, I was like, I realized that like I've been influenced by Nancy like in ways that I don't often even realize that I am. Like I just did a show where I converted a whole bunch of these boxes to all the characters, and she did that, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's where I got it. I didn't invent that at all. Like that's all Nancy Renfro. And but also like I think what I inherited from her is this idea that that you can do that, like you can create something out of nothing, and just that attitude towards like seeing the potential in things, especially stuff that's been cast away. So wait, what do we got, Claire? This is
Because of the box?
Yeah.
Yes, everywhere boxes,
and they're great. They're absolutely great.
I got that from there too, and this has been just sitting around.
Wonderful. Now that thank you so much to our presenters, and just this little taste of what this woman's legacy that it lives on. Absolutely. I did want to open it up to the audience to see if you guys had any questions. I think I can make it so you can speak if you want to raise your hand to ask a question or put something in the chat. That is absolutely fine. We have, like I said, a wealth of experience and knowledge here that you can draw on. Yes, so we got a note that we have actually been talking as a committee about to archive the work of a lot of puppeteers, especially as puppeteers age and get older. Like the challenge of being a puppetry organization is the stuff, right? I mean, the challenge is how do you maintain these artifacts? And so we've been talking about that quite a lot. The expense of maintaining an archive of objects. I have some experience with that because I went to Arizona State University, who has an extensive child drama collection that has a lot of objects, like stuff like costumes from Irene Corey and like some other stuff like that. So it does take a really specialized staff and specialized handling. So that I think is going to take some real investment on our part as people who love these artists, some potential like grant writing and things like that to find a place. So yes, we are talking about it, and if people have specific contacts or ideas, we're absolutely open to that. As Ellen was saying, like this is a big undertaking, and it's going to take all of us and all of our ideas to keep this legacy going. Because like as you just saw from these, like that she was just a font of incredible ideas that just are still absolutely relevant, absolutely very usable. I introduce her to my students all the time at Cal State San Bernardino, and they're like, if I had had a teacher like this, my life would have been completely different. Like you know what I mean? Like just this idea that creativity matters and that there's a space for us to have it in our classrooms. So are there any questions from the group? Can you raise your hand, or if anybody wants to speak or ask anything? Because if not, I have some goodies for you. Creativity matters. Thank you, Ronnie. Yeah, so we are going to do a drawing for a copy of this incredible book that Ellen has reprinted. I can't believe you did this. This is such a treasure. Tamara Hunt, I've actually talked to. I interviewed Tamara Hunt for my book, actually. So Tamara Hunt, I think she was on a boat at the time, which I think is hilarious. So I was talking to her while she was on a speedboat somewhere outside of Hawaii. She is retired, but she is absolutely an incredible resource. So we do absolutely have to mention Tamara Hunt as part of Nancy Renfro's legacy. And Liz, thank you for saying teachers need to be invited to P of A. That's what we do as a committee, the Puppetry and Education and Therapy Committee. That is what we're working on right now, is advocating for people to include teachers, librarians, educators in everything that we do, because they are part of the fabric of puppetry. We raise kids to love the creativity of puppetry. They'll come and watch puppet shows. And if we, like, it's all connected. That's why, yeah. So before I forget it, let me share this wonderful booklet, Puppetry Unplugged, The Power of Puppets, that Ellen put together. So it is uploading right now in the chat. This is a gift to you guys from Ellen. There it is. Yeah, so you guys can those of you who are here can download it, and it's got wonderful ideas from both Ellen and Nancy. I've already given, let's see, we're going to share these resources to our Facebook page. If you are not yet a member of our Facebook group, you can become a member of our Facebook group. Hang on one second. Let me put the link to our Facebook group. There we go. So if you can put, if you can, oh shoot, it should be there. It says pubooklet.pdf. Can everybody see that? Samantha, can you see that?
I see it, yes.
Excellent. Okay, so it's in the chat. So now I'm going to, I don't see any questions. I'm seeing a lot of thank you guys for the appreciation, because like I said, we just want to sing this woman's praises. We want to encourage people to study her, write about her. Anything we can do to get her work out there is okay. Good. Yay. People are downloading it. So I'm going to ask Connie Mulligan to join us and lead the raffle drawing. Let's see.
I'm here.
There she is. This is so exciting.
Except the screen went away. There we go.
Always.
Yay!
Nice.
See the wheel of names now?
Oh, you're amazing. Look at that.
All right. So we're going to spin. I've put the 21 names in. We had 21 people fill out this form. And thank you for those of you that also added the information of where you would like a book sent on behalf of Ellen and Nancy Renfro to go to an organization or a university or anything. So here we go.
Oh.
I like that
That
drum roll. That's
really good drum roll for something that didn't happen.
oh, well, I like the drum roll anyway.
All right, why aren't you spinning? It was spinning a minute ago.
It's so pretty.
Oh,
Oh,
there it goes.
Hey! Paul, Greggs, are you here? Sherry, I just posted the booklet in the chat. Is that where you just posted a chat? It's a link to a PDF. It should be right there. Everybody else is seeing it. Let's see. And if not, yay, Paul! Wonderful. Hey, Paul, can you send me your address? Or Connie, you have
I
it,
got
right?
it. I got it
Okay,
in
cool. Then, Paul, I will be sending you a copy of this incredible book. Yay! Congratulations! Yay! I know.
now we all have it.
We all have it because it's all like, oh, I'm so glad. And then, oh yeah, okay. So those of you who can't see the file, it might be a mobile issue. I will put the link to this publication in our Facebook group, and I will also put the recording of this presentation in the Facebook group in case you need to refer to it for anything. So, and yeah, all you have to just request that I add you, and I will happily add you. So I see some hands up. Yay! Nancy Staub, I'm going to call on you. I made it so you can talk. Do you have, can you turn on your microphone?
Looks like it's on.
I put on mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Well, I just want to say, I don't know if Ellen and I are the only people who actually knew Nancy personally. And I just wanted to add how much we loved her and what a special human being she was. She was not just brilliant, she was very special. And it made me very happy to see this tribute.
Super.
Yeah.
And Debbie Roberts, if you're still here, you should give a shout out, because Debbie Roberts actually was one of the co-authors of this book and worked really closely with Nancy. She was in attendance. I'm not sure she's still here.
That means a
Anyway,
lot. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Nancy. That's
I
because
feel privileged to have been with Nancy as long as I was Nancy. Nancy.
Yeah, well, at 90 years old, I'm a little teared up.
Oh my gosh.
well,
That's
I
amazing.
hope it's clear how much she's, I mean, I was in
Oh, yeah.
college when she passed, but look at like the power of this
You
book.
were how old?
I was in college when she passed away.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
And
It
I
makes me
never
very-
got a chance to know her.
Mm.
And it's one of the heartbreaks of my life. But at the same time, I'm so thrilled to get to have known, you know, I'm getting to know her this way. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, me too.
That's amazing.
Thank you, Nancy Staub. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for that. I am going to call now on Judy O'Hare, who's also here. Let's see. There we go. I just made it so you can talk, Judy. But there we go.
I unmuted.
You're good.
I really started to do work in puppetry education in P of A at around in the late 80s, 1989. We had the big festival, the education portion of the Puppeteers of America festival at MIT that year, which was really a regrouping of people in puppetry and education after this wonderful group that put together. Can you see me? Why can't you see me?
Oh, we can hear you.
I can't show you this. I'm holding up one of the copies of the Puppetry Education News. These magazines were done for many years, and they're absolutely a treasure trove of material. Nancy was, of course, one of the contributors and one of the editors, but there were marvelous people that did it. Bruce Chesse was one of them. Beverly Sims was one of them. Carol Sterling, and so on. And I have been able, in one of the schools that I was in, able to copy several years worth, and they should be archived somewhere. So that's something to think about, because this work is absolutely amazing, and it sort of died out for many years until we started to revive again, really around 2000. So we lost a lot of time with all these wonderful things, except we always had Nancy's book. So I hope that we'll be able to get this material available to people. I would love to have that happen.
Yeah, working on it. That's definitely a priority. I see her as the foundation. I mean, it's absolutely the foundation. And it's such a strong foundation. You know what I mean? Like it's such a strong, powerful, like, and like I'll keep saying this because I guess I'm almost like an evangelist when it comes to her work, but it's like the idea that it's rooted in accessibility and inclusion is huge. I mean, the fact that we just live that way because of her is, it's really hard to express how important that is. So
There were a group of people that were working with her, or working at the same time, and they should be remembered as well. And many of them are in this magazine. It was a fabulous magazine. It's too bad that it couldn't have been continued.
well, but that's
So-
what we're here for now. Revival, revival.
Yeah, I think of it like a little ember that's just underneath, and all we have
Yeah.
to do is just, you know, just.
It's amazing because I try to go to all the puppet festivals, the Puppeteers of America festivals, and through the years, you know, I think my first one was in 1980, and and everyone was talking about Nancy, and through the years, it's kind of faded and faded. I remember Steve Abrams is in a picture of him as a young hippie in their first book about in the library, and but every festival there were less and less people that were familiar with her, so I just really appreciate you guys reigniting the flame.
I have just made it so Carol Sterling can say a couple words. Carol, are you there?
Hi, everybody. I had the pleasure of meeting Nancy at my first Puppeteers of America festival. I think it was either 70 or 72 or 74. And she was living in Connecticut at the time, and I was living in New Jersey. And she totally changed my approach and my life because I had just begun to work with puppets. And we became dear friends. She came and stayed with me at my house, she and Bob. And then when she moved to Pennsylvania, we stayed in touch, and then on to Austin. I visited with her and stayed at their home in Austin. And she was the most, I have to say, she was the most responsive person. Whenever I had an idea, this was long before we had internet where we could do email, I would write her a letter and say, here's a project that I'm thinking about doing. She would send it back to me with her notes, with her encouragement. And then we were both together in Japan at an Unama festival in 1988. And we traveled together, and the impact that she had with people is something that I feel like Ellen and Claire and Samantha, you all know. She had a way with people. She talked softly, but she could look you in the eye and smile and make you feel like you could do anything. And she had that, I guess it's kind of, oh, it's a gift. And I know we all miss her to this day. And I do hope that everybody who's on this call, who's doing work in puppetry and education, will consider how can they share their work with all of us and then locally. And I'm wondering, you know, the Center for Puppetry Arts has an excellent, thank you, Nancy Staub, for all your work there, has an excellent archive where perhaps we can all share our work with them. But I want to just make one more comment to everybody who's listening. If you are doing work in puppetry and education, I hope you will consider writing an article for the Puppetry Journal or Unama International, you know, the whatever, whichever is appropriate. Document everything that you're doing so that we can learn from you and we can broaden our constituency. My dream is that every school of education will offer a puppetry course for preschool through grade 12 teachers. So see if you can think about how that might happen where you live. Because if we can get puppetry in the elementary and secondary curriculum, it will have an enormous opportunity for us to create the next generation of not just teachers who are using puppets in the classroom, but their children who will become our puppeteers. Thank you for letting me be on my soapbox.
Thank you,
You're
Carol.
another puppet evangelist close to my own heart.
Yes, I
Carol.
am. Yes, I
Yes.
am. Thank you.
Close to my own heart. I was actually going to say, to follow up on what Carol was saying, one of the things I did in California, and I would encourage people to do is, especially if you're in a position where you have access, like I work for a university, so I have some, like, a little bit of access, but I was able to get the word puppetry into the theater standards for the state of California, as a recommended approach to teaching the standards in K-12 education. So, and I know that seems like a small thing, but if you can get those things in there,
Yes.
like just the word puppet, then all of a sudden people, like principals, will go, oh, that's allowed, right? We're supposed to do that. Look at that. It's in the guidance. It's in the guidelines. So it's in the guiding framework document for the state of California's arts education, I should say. So I'm just saying, like, there are very, very important things you can do that seem like not a big deal, but they really are. And especially, like, if you have time or energy to devote to such a thing, you can make a big difference in how we teach.
I got that done in Georgia too, Johanna.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
so this was a number of years ago, and I complained to the person writing the theater standards. I said, "Where's puppetry?"
Yes.
And the
And it
next
seems like
year
such a
it was
small
in the
thing.
standards. It was in the standards.
You got to put the word in
Liz.
there. You got to put the word in there. And I know that sounds so,
Man.
and it's like, it's because the national ones, I was in grad school when the national ones were being written. So that's how I got kind of an inside eye on how that all worked. But it's like, once you realize how it all works, then it's like, oh, that's what administrators are looking at, right? And that's unfortunately where the power is. And so just little things. And so I'm also getting loud and clear the message that archiving materials and reinvigorating access to materials is a priority for us as a group of people. And seeing Ellen and Samantha and Claire, your presentations, getting us so excited about this work and the power of this work again. It's really reminded me about why I'm even here at all, you know. So I just want to, in the spirit of Nancy Renfro, encourage people to be bold, be courageous and crazy and wonderful, and try things you haven't before. Everybody on this call, please apply to do a presentation at a festival, at a Puppeteers of America festival. Like, do an education presentation, even if it's something you think is really simple. Someone out there probably has never seen it or gotten inspired by it. So we can all, you know, pick up that torch and put our energy out there to spread the word. Yeah. So, like, let's get this idea out with as much people as possible. And to also echo what Carol said, writing is really important, and dissemination of writing is really important. So that's why we are so excited about having copies of this book. And I saw in the chat that people are interested in getting copies of this book. If you stay involved in our Facebook page, that is where I will, as soon as I figure out what we're allowed to do and how we're allowed to do it, we will be accepting donations for copies of the book, and I'll be able to get copies out to people, especially because I think it needs to be in the hands of people who appreciate this work and will carry on the legacy. So are there any final thoughts? Oh, presenters, amazing presenters. I'm so grateful for.
I have one last thing. I wanted to actually read a little excerpt of this for us, but did we finish with anyone else's questions or hands? We're good?
I think we're good. I
Okay.
should also, before we read our final thought, we have an event
Yeah.
coming up that Connie Mulligan, who's here, is going to coordinate, and we're calling it May Make and Take, which I love. I love the name May Make and Take. So we're doing more of an event that's less sort of a presentation kind of thing and more like a how-to. So here it is. There's our blurb that was in the newsletter. So May 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, Connie is gathering ideas. And I'm sure you'll see a lot of Renfro ideas too, that are being referred to in these things that you can do over the summer in your very busy summers as artist educators. So, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Samantha.
All right. I'm just going to share this beautiful last picture here. Oh, yes, that's the website for us. Here we go. So this excerpt is just from Nancy's special child lecture. And it's just at the end here. And I just thought it was so inspiring and lovely. So she says, at first, I thought I'd go into fashion design, and then I thought I'd go into graphic design, and somehow I ended up in what we call industrial design, which trains people for a wide variety of design backgrounds: interior design, toy design, car design, exhibit design, almost anything you can think of. With the heavy emphasis on the visual arts there and studies and minimal basics, I was in heaven. I hate to be jumping on the academics so much, but I did have a terrible aversion for them, stemming back from the way they were taught in the passivity of pure audio system in the early years. I had difficulty, it seems, in absorbing information unless it was nonverbal in some form. When I pursued puppetry career in later years, I was rather amazed in how interested I did finally become in the academics. Well, through writing books on puppetry, all of a sudden I learned that I could write. I had never been a good writer in school. Also, I began to put on educational shows like 80 Years of Ben Franklin in 40 minutes. I would read up all about Ben Franklin. I was fascinated by him and the little details that compose a famous person's life. This sort of thing kept popping up again and again through the media of puppetry. That's when I came to the realization that puppetry, as well as the arts, could serve as an invaluable tool to be used in the classroom to motivate learning for all children as well as the special child. Art then helped me to survive emotionally and intellectually. I also used art to build up my self-esteem, and I was always fortunate to have someone who helped keep that sense of self-esteem at a high level. My parents were very supportive that way, a few special friends, and my husband. I think for the handicapped person, one of the most important things in life when you live a life of constant rejections, whether there are many subtle small rejections or many obvious ones, this lifestyle must be balanced with a constant show of acceptance by others to keep their self-esteem at a high level as possible. So one of the venues in a handicapped life, it seems to me, is praise and encouragement. I know it's not possible for everyone to be an Anne Sullivan to a Helen Keller. Teachers and librarians do not always have the time to give this special kind of attention, but whenever it is possible, it is important to apply it. And it takes on an accumulative effect. Every little bit counts. I just thought that was so inspiring. So
we're all
wanted to share that. Just lovely to see her
Beautiful.
words.
Beautiful, Samantha. Thank you. I feel like we're in I feel like her legacy is in good hands. We are going to keep this energy going. This is wonderful, you guys. So thank you everybody for coming. Like I said, we have one more event before the summer. We'd love to see everybody there. And again, just please share, become part of this crazy community that we call PIET. Come join us. If you want to be on our leadership committee, let me know. I'll put the PIET address in the chat again, PIET@puppeteers.org. Anything else for the good of the order, as my friends say. So
Thank you so much, Johanna.
Hey, it was the PIET committee. I'm just here. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
We'll see you at the
Happy
next one.
trails.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later. Keep in touch.
Oh, we're gonna be bugging you, Ellen. Hang on.
Okay. Well, you know my contact.